والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
قال المصنف رحمه الله: خلق الخلق بعلمه وقدر لهم أقدارا وضرب لهم آجالا ولم يخف عليه شيء قبل أن يخلقهم وعلم ما هم عاملون قبل أن يخلقهم وأمرهم بطاعته ونهاهم عن معصيته وكل شيء يجري بتقديره.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، له الحمد الحسن والثناء الجميل، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل، وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. So Imam At-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he's now going to go on to talk about some of the issues relating to Al-Qadr wal-Qadha. And we all know how important it is for us as Muslims to believe in the Qadr, the decree or the divine decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that in the hadith of Jibreel, you all know the hadith of Jibreel, that Jibreel came and he said, "O Muhammad, tell me about Islam." And then he said, "O Muhammad, tell me about Iman." He said, "O Muhammad, tell me about Ihsan." And then he said, "When is the hour?" And he said, "Tell me some of its signs." In this hadith has a reason why it was narrated. The hadith was narrated from Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, but he wasn't the one who narrated it to the tabi'een. It was narrated to the tabi'een by Abdullah ibn Umar, his son, radiyallahu anhuma. And Abdullah ibn Umar, he narrated it because of a question that he was asked by some of the tabi'een. Two of the tabi'een, they came to Abdullah ibn Umar and they said, "Oh, Abdullah ibn Umar," they said to him, "There has appeared a people in our area, and one of the characteristics that they mention about those people, the key thing they wanted to explain, is that they say that there is no qadr, and that affairs happen randomly, things happen randomly." And Abdullah ibn Umar, he mentioned that if you see these people, then tell them that I have nothing to do with them and they have nothing to do with me. Wallahi, if one of them were to spend the mountain of Uhud in gold, it would not be accepted from him until he believed in Al-Qadr, until he believed in Allah's decree. And then he gave a dalil, and his dalil was the hadith of Jibreel. أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وأن تؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. That you believe in Allah and His angels, His messengers, His scripture, and the last day, and you believe in the divine decree, the good of it and the bad of it. And that is the whole reason that Abdullah ibn Umar narrated that hadith. The whole hadith about Islam and Iman and Ihsan and about the signs of the hour, all of it was narrated solely for the purpose of proving that believing in Qadr is an essential part of the belief of a Muslim. Imam At-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, خَلَقَ الْخَلْقَ بِعِلْمِهِ. He created creation with knowledge. And the reason, even though the word Qadr hasn't been mentioned until this point right now, but the first stage, and if you like, Qadr has 4 stages that you have to believe in to really understand it properly. 4 levels or 4 stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And the very first stage is to recognize the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything that happened, and everything that is happening, and everything that will happen, i.e. He knows the past, and He knows the present, and He knows the future. And He knows al-mumkin wal-mustahil, what is possible and what is impossible. And the evidence that He knows what's impossible is that Allah Azza wa Jal told us in the Quran what would happen if there was a God besides Allah. Is it possible there could be a God besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is mustahil, it's impossible. And playing around. And we don't describe Allah Azza wa Jal with wasting time and playing around. SubhanAllah, we see, SubhanAllah, some people, they think of this like little children, playing with things. Oh, he plays with it and he makes a story. It's not like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created creation, He created them with a purpose. And He created them with knowledge of what they would do and what would happen to each one of them and all of the different things that would go on in their life and even the impossibilities relating to them. Allah Azza wa Jal knew all of it. And we already mentioned that Allah Azza wa Jal didn't need His creation. Khaliqun bila haja. He was the creator. He is the creator without having any need. He doesn't need His creation. So Allah Azza wa Jal khalaqa al-khalqa bi'ilmih. He created creation while He knew everything that was going to happen to them. And He knew everything related to them. Now at this point, this is where it can be difficult and people start to be defeatist. They start to say that, well, if Allah knows what's going to happen to me, what is the point of me being here? I'm just destined for Jahannam. I'm just waiting for the time that Allah has decreed for me. And that, if you feel that way, is a sign that you haven't understood Al-Qadr wal-Qada properly. And I told you, maybe last time, or if I didn't, I'm going to tell you this time, that the way that you know that Al-Qadr and Qada, you've understood it properly, is when you feel more motivated than ever to act. And when you feel extremely scared that Allah Azza wa Jal, if He doesn't help you, you will not be able to achieve anything. If you've listened to an explanation of Al-Qadr wal-Qada and your end conclusion is, I need to work really hard and I need to beg Allah to save me, then you have understood Qadr. And if your reaction is, why is it, how can I, there's no point, I may as well be lazy, then you haven't understood Al-Qadr wal-Qada. You need to go back and understand it again. Because that's not the feeling that the Sahaba got when they understood it. The Sahaba, when they understood knowledge about Al-Qadr wal-Qada from the Prophet ﷺ, they felt extremely motivated to act. Yes, they asked questions. How is it then like this? How can we, what shall we do if it's already decreed for us? But the end result of their study was hard work and need of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Needing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and desire to work really hard. And the simple reason for that, in case we don't get to it in the end before the salah, the simple reason for that is that first of all, Allah Azza wa Jal has promised to guide the one who works hard. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those people who strive for our cause, we will guide them to our ways. So Allah Azza wa Jalla has promised to guide those people who work hard. And Allah doesn't break His promise. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُخْلِفُ الْمِيعَادِ. Allah doesn't break His promise. And the second thing is that you realize your desperate need, because you realize that even if you have these big dreams, I'm going to be a doctor and an engineer and a scientist, I'm going to do this and I'm going to open a business and I'm going to make money and I'm going to die and go to Jannah. All of those big dreams that you have cannot happen without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from this you feel the need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the benefits of believing in Qadr are many. From the benefits of believing in Qadr are many, but I just want to highlight one. Is that it saves you from jealousy. It saves you from jealousy. If you feel jealous of other people, you can't have understood al-Iman bil-Qadr correctly. Because the whole point of al-Iman bil-Qadr is whatever came to you was never going to miss you, even if you had, even if you had all the money in the world and all the abilities that anyone can have in the world, that any human being can have in the world. And even if you had all of the angels to help you, and all of the jinn, and all of Bani Adam to help you, you still wouldn't be able to achieve what that other person got. Because what they got was decreed for them, and what you got was decreed for you. So what's the point in being jealous of them? Why are you wishing for something that in the first place Allah Azza wa Jal didn't choose it for you? That doesn't mean you can't work towards something. But that feeling of jealousy and that feeling of hatred towards someone else, that comes from a lack of belief in Qadr. And also, some of the scholars mentioned regarding the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla, وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ يَهْدِ قَلْبَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah, Allah guides his heart. That this was revealed regarding Al-Iman bil-Qadr. That if you believe in Qadr, you feel your heart, you feel yourself settled. Like, okay, there's a plan, it's not random. Everything that happens to me for a reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is controlling it. Alhamdulillah, let me put my trust in Allah. Let me try and work hard and strive hard to get what I can. And let me ask Allah for His help, because I know that there is a plan and I know that there is a purpose. As opposed to the non-Muslims, which many of them you see outside. And because they don't believe in Qadr, what happens? Whenever anything bad happens to them, they become completely like suicidal. Oh, I lost my life, I lost everything, they become suicidal because they have no belief in Qadr. They have nothing to guide their heart, nothing to make their heart settle. So this is very important, that belief in Qadr is not something that, oh, it's Qadr, forget about it, it's too hard to understand. It's not hard to understand. It's hard to understand when you go beyond what Allah told you. Like Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said it's a sea with no shore. It's a sea that doesn't have a beach, yani it's an unlimited sea. Whoever climbs aboard the ship of safety, and he made a comparison to Safinat Nuh, the ship of Nuh. The Sunnah is the ship of safety. The Sunnah is the ship of Nuh. If you climb on board, you'll be fine. But if you start going outside of what the Sunnah told you about Qadr, you're going to drown in the sea. Because you're going to take on board something you can't understand. Something that is beyond your intellect. But if you stick to what we said, we start with first of all the basic idea that Allah Azza wa Jalla knows everything, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote everything, that everything happens by Allah's will, and that everything, whether objects or actions or events, happen by the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we understand that as a basic principle, we can build on that. And there are masail which Imam Tahawi is going to mention or allude to, which are going to help you a lot. And those are issues like guidance and misguidance, and do we have a will or not, and if so, is our will limited or all of that stuff we're going to come to. Why is there evil? All of that stuff we're going to come to. But for now, the basic steps, basic 4 things. I believe that Allah Azza wa Jal knows everything. I believe that Allah Azza wa Jal wrote everything. I believe that nothing happens without Allah Azza wa Jal willing it to happen. And I believe that everything, whether objects or actions in this universe, happens by Allah's creation, subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether directly or indirectly. And we're going to talk about that later. Allah Azza wa Jal said, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقٍ. Doesn't the one who created know? And that's in Surah Al-Mulk, ayah number 14. Doesn't the one who created know? So here, look how Allah Azza wa Jal links between al-ilmu wal-khalq. That if Allah Azza wa Jal, He created it knowing it. He didn't create it without knowing what was going to happen. He didn't create it as an experiment. He didn't create it as something which is random and playing and messing around. Allah Azza wa Jal created it, knowing what would happen to it, knowing what it was going to, knowing how it fits into the plan. Allah Azza wa Jal knows all of that, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from this is the fact that nobody knows the unseen except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it because I keep saying I mentioned, and then I keep thinking, I don't know if it was this class or another one. But with regard to the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Nobody knows the ta'wil of it except Allah. There are 2 ways of reading this ayah. One is that you stop on lafzul jalala, you stop on the word Allah. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. If I'm not mistaken, it might be ayah number 7 in Surah Al-Imran, possibly 8, but roughly. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Nobody knows the ta'wil of it except Allah. And there is a qira'ah, which is a qira'ah mutawatira. It's reported from many of the companions that they stopped وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. Nobody knows the ta'wil except Allah and those firmly grounded in knowledge. So when the scholars came to this, they said, this ta'wil is not this ta'wil. Depending on where you stop in the ayah, the meaning of the word ta'wil changes. If you say that Allah and the scholars know it, then it means tafsir. Because Allah Azza wa Jal knows the tafsir of His Quran subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nothing escapes His knowledge, and the scholars have been blessed to know the tafsir of the Quran. And that's why Ibn Mas'ud and others, and Ibn Abbas and a Jama' from the Sahaba, they said that we know the tafsir of every single ayah of the Quran. So here, if Allah and the scholars know it, then this is the tafsir of the Quran. And if we stop at the word Allah, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, then here we say that a ta'wil, it means عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ, how things are going to end up, the ghaib, the unseen component. What is it? How is it all going to turn out? What is going to be the final abode and the final result of the misguidance of those people who are following the wrong interpretations and making up interpretations for themselves? What's going to be the end? How is it going to all work out? Who's going to be guided? Who's going to be misguided? What is the end of this all the things that are going to happen in this universe? How is it going to end? وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Nobody knows how it's going to end except Allah Azza wa Jalla. He said, وَقَدَّرَ لَهُمْ أَقْدَارًا. Rahimahullah ta'ala, the author, he said, وَقَدَّرَ لَهُمْ أَقْدَارًا. He said that Allah Azza wa Jalla decreed for them decrees. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, وَخَلَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَقَدَّرَهُ تَقْدِيرًا. He created everything and He gave it its due measure, or He gave it its due decree. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Qamar, إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Every single thing, we created it with a decree. We created it with a decree. And the Shaykh was explaining the book. He doesn't mention this, but I think it's a valid point, that why did Imam At-Tahawi, why did he mention Aqeedah? Why did he not say وَقَدَّرَ لَهُمْ قَدْرًا? He decreed for them a decree. Why did he say decrees? This could allude to something that might help you understand a very important point. And I don't know if that was the intention of the author, but it could really help you to understand something. That there is more than one type of decree. There is more than one type of decree. There is a final and unchanging decree, which is what is written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. It doesn't change. It doesn't get altered. It doesn't get added to. It doesn't get amended. It's unchangeable. Completely immutable. Doesn't change, doesn't move, doesn't get added, doesn't get taken away from. And that is what is in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. And there are various other kinds of qadr, kinds of decrees. For example, the decrees which are given to the angels at various times, on Laylatul Qadr or in any other time when the angels are given various decrees. So if somebody asks you the question, can your qadr change? There are hadith about dua, about al-ayn, the evil eye. Can your qadr change? The answer is that we have to give you a bit of an explanation to answer that. We can't answer it yes or no. We have to give you a bit of tafsil, a bit of details. If by qadr you mean the Lawh al-Mahfuz, then it doesn't change. Ever. If you mean by qadr the decrees which are given yearly or daily or on certain particular times to the angels and so on and so forth, then this is open to change. So let me give you an example. And this is one of the opinions of the scholars about this mas'ala, but it's easy to understand. Let me give you an example. Here we have Brother Muhammad, who, as far as the angels are concerned, is going to die this year. He's decreed that he's going to die this year, right? He's going to die this year. And his mother makes dua for him. She asks Allah to give him a long life, and Allah accepts her dua. And he is decreed to live for another 20 years. From the point of view of him and the angels, his qadr changed. From the point of view of the Lawh al-Mahfuz, nothing changed. Because the extension, the original, the dua, all of it is written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. So in terms of the Lawh al-Mahfuz, what is written is that Muhammad is going to die at this time, but his mother is going to make dua, and his life is going to be extended. Nothing will change there. But in terms of him as he sees it, and in terms of the angels as they are commanded by Allah Azza wa Jal, then yes, it is possible that some of these decrees are open to change according to things like dua and the evil eye and other things like that. This is one of the opinions of the scholars. The mas'ala is long and detailed and lots of different things we can bring. But it's useful when he said aqdara, just to mention that there are different types of qadr, and this might help you to understand that difficult issue when someone asks you, can your qadr change? And if it can't change, then does that mean I'm condemned? I'm just going for Jahannam. It doesn't mean that, because you don't know what the end result is. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. You don't know how it's going to end up. You don't know. You might think I'm doing the actions of the people of Jahannam, and towards the end of your life, make tawbah which Allah Azza wa Jal accepts from you, and then subhanAllah be from the people of Jannah. So there is no point worrying about something that you don't know what is written for you. You don't know what the end result is going to be. Nobody knows, not the Prophet ﷺ or anyone else. Nobody knew what that end result is going to be. So if you don't know it, you may as well work hard and do what? Trust in Allah. And didn't we say that if you understood Qadr correctly, you'll be inspired to work hard. Why would you work hard? Because Allah will help you if you work hard. And if Allah doesn't help you, you're going to go to Jahannam anyway. And so therefore, work hard so that Allah Azza wa Jal helps you by His mercy, and so that you can be from the people of Jannah. Definitely, if you're not working hard, that's a bad sign. Because that's a sign that you're just, you're heading down the wrong road in the wrong direction, and you need to change course quickly. But there's no point being defeatist and saying, I don't know what's written for me, and I don't know, I'm probably just condemned, and I'm just going to go to Jahannam, because you don't know what that final outcome is. Just like that person we gave an example of, he didn't know that his life was going to be extended. He didn't know when it was going to end, and he didn't know any of that. So at the end of the day, all you can do is to work hard and put your trust in Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَقَدَّرَ لَهُمْ أَقْدَارًا وَضَرَبَ لَهُمْ آجَالًا. And I probably should have mentioned that under this point. And He gave each thing in its creation a lifespan. And Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهُمْ لَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ سَاعَةً وَلَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ. When their time comes, they will not be able to bring it forward even a small amount of time. And just as a fa'idah, like a little benefit for you, when you hear the word sa'a in classical Arabic, it doesn't always mean an hour. Like sometimes we misunderstand that. Like on the day of Jumu'ah, there is a sa'a in which your dua is accepted. It doesn't mean 60 minutes. A sa'a is a period of time. It could be short, it could be long. The sa'a that we have today is 60 minutes, no problem. And it may be sometimes that you find a hadith in which the sa'a is meant like that. The sa'at of the day and the night, the hours of the day and the night. But the word sa'a on its own, it just means a period of time. So they will not be able to bring it forward or take it back, delay it, and they will not be able to bring it forward. And Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تَمُوتَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ كِتَابًا مُؤَجَّلًا. It's not allowed for a soul to die except with the permission of Allah in a book that has a fixed time. Everything has a fixed, it is a decree. Kitab here doesn't mean a book, it means a decree. A decree, or it means in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. But the word kitab here, the apparent meaning of it is that it is a decree which has a particular time. He said, the author, he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَلَمْ يَخْفَ عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَخْلُقَهُمْ وَعَلِمَ مَا هُمْ عَامِلُونَ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَخْلُقَهُمْ. He said, nothing was hidden from Allah about them when He created them. And He knew what they were going to do before He created them. And there is a benefit in an ayah which the Shaykh who is explaining this book, Aqeedah Tahawiyyah, was Ibn Abi Al-Hanafi rahimahullah ta'ala. He mentioned a very beneficial point here. He mentioned the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَلَوْ رُدُّوا لَعَادُوا لِمَا نُهُوا عَنْهُ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. In Surah Al-An'am, ayah number 28. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us what would happen, or what will happen to the people of the hellfire. وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ وُقِفُوا عَلَى النَّارِ. If you only saw when the people will be put over the fire, what will they say? قَالُوا يَا لَيْتَنَا نُرَدْ. How we wish we could come back. وَلَا نُكَذِّبَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّنَا. We will not deny the signs of our Lord. وَنَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And we're going to be from the believers. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said, بَدَا لَهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يُخْفُونَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. What came out, what became apparent is what they used to hide before. And if we return them, they would go back to the same thing that they were prohibited from, and they are the liars. Why did I mention this ayah, apart from the fact that Al-Abd is Al-Hanafi, rahimahullah ta'ala, mentioned it under this point, is that this ayah gives us it gives us comfort that really in the justice of Allah Azza wa Jalla, those people who go to Jahannam, are they sincere people who just, didn't quite get it right? La wallah. If they were sincere, then how can it be said about them that if they were taken out of Jahannam and put back on the earth, they would do the exact same thing again, and they are liars. So every single person who ends up in the fire of Jahannam forever without ever getting out of it, this individual is there because they have denied the command of Allah, and they still don't have the sincerity to get out of the fire. Still they say, oh Allah, take us out, take us out, take us out. When Allah takes them out, they do the same thing again. The exact same thing again. So that also gives you confidence in the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it gives you an insight to some of the wisdom in Allah's misguiding individuals. That Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't misguide somebody who's sincerely trying. And this is something that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned with regard to the hadith about the person who does the actions of the people of Jannah until there is nothing between him and Jannah except the length of the forearm, a dhira'. Then the decree of Allah overcomes him and he becomes from the people of the hellfire. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned about this hadith, it is not possible that this person did those deeds sincerely for Allah and in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Rather, what is meant by he did the actions of the people of Jannah is he did the actions of the people of Jannah zahiran, apparently to the people, as you saw them. You saw him doing the actions of the people of Jannah. But Allah Azza wa Jalla knew that he was doing the actions of the people of Jahannam. Because of a lack of sincerity and other things that came to take him away from the haqq, we ask Allah's refuge from that. But you see how? You listen to this hadith and you think, subhanAllah, maybe I will pray, I will do hajj, maybe I should just go out and party instead. Why shall I stay here? Why shall I be doing all of my ibadat? Maybe I'm just going to do my ibadat and I'm going to get within this close of Jannah, and then Allah is going to put me into Jahannam. The person who that happens to will be someone who was not sincere. To us, it appeared to us that they were doing the actions of the people of Jannah. But the reality was not. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never misguide a person who is trying and striving to be guided and asking Allah Azza wa Jalla sincerely and taking the necessary actions to get that guidance from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not betray that person and leave that person. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinitely just. وَأَمَرَهُمْ بِطَاعَتِهِ وَنَهَاهُمْ عَنْ مَعْصِيَتِهِ. He commanded them to obey Him and He prohibited them from disobeying Him. Here, Imam Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions commands and prohibitions after he mentioned creation and Qadr. And this is in order that you understand, or in order that you appreciate the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So here, why did he mention prohibitions and commands when he's talking about Qadr? What's that got to do with that? You can say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated His commands and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them down, but why? What is the relationship between talking about commands and prohibitions and Qadr? The first thing that you need to be aware of here is very simple, is that Allah Azza wa Jal did not create creation without purpose. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We only created the jinn and the men to worship me, to worship Allah alone. That's why Allah created you. He didn't create you for any other purpose. So we said we can join, if we look at all of there are three, really, approximately, there are three reasons for creation mentioned in the Quran. The first one is to worship Allah. The second one is to know Allah. Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawati, we mentioned the ayah last time. لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. Allah created the heavens and the earth for you to know Him. That's the second one. And the third one is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. The one who created death and life to test you, which of you is best in deeds. How do we reconcile? The Quran doesn't contradict itself. Okay, these are not three different things. These are three aspects of the same thing. So what we say is, first of all, knowing Allah and worshipping Allah are intrinsically connected to each other. They are absolutely connected to each other. You cannot worship Allah without knowing Him. How can you worship something that has no existence? And that's why some of the scholars of the past, when they came to talk about the Jahmiyyah who denied Allah's attributes, they said, Al-Jahmi ya'budu adama. The Jahmi, he worships nothing. Because if you don't know Allah and you don't give Allah His names and attributes, and you don't know about Allah's forgiveness or Allah's mercy, you don't have hope, you don't have love, how can you worship Allah if you don't know anything? If I said to you, worship Allah, I said, I worship Allah. I said, who is Allah? I said, I have no idea. How can you worship Allah without knowing Him? And knowing Allah implies and entails you will worship Him. Because if you know Allah as He deserves to be known, how can you not worship Him? If you know that only Allah creates, and only Allah provides, and only Allah sends down rain, and only Allah gives life, and only Allah causes death, then how can you worship something besides Allah? How can you worship an idol that idol can't even remove the fly from its own head when it lands on it, let alone answer your dua? How can you make dua to a dead person in the grave when that dead person in the grave doesn't even control life for himself? If he controlled life for himself, he wouldn't have died in the first place. The fact that he's dead in his grave, or the fact that he's passed on to the barzakh, but the fact that he died out of this world is a clear proof that he didn't control life and death for himself. So if you know that Allah is the one who controls life and death, and you know that your rizq is in the hands of Allah, and you know that your Jannah and your Nar are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then how can you worship something other than Allah Azza wa Jalla? And then you are tested as to whether you worship Allah or not. And that way we can reconcile between all of the ayat about the purposes of creation, more or less. We can reconcile between them by simply saying, you know Allah, based upon knowing Allah, you worship Him, and you are tested as to whether you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or you don't. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. He said, the author said, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ يَجْرِي بِتَقْدِيرِهِ وَمَشِيئَتِهِ. Well, he said, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ, I don't have that in that way here. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ, that's what I memorized. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ يَجْرِي بِتَقْدِيرِهِ. Everything that exists in this world, everything that's going from one to another, that's moving, anything that's ongoing, anything that ever happened or will ever happen, all of it happens by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're going to mention just a couple of more points before the adhan, and by all means please do interrupt me when the adhan time comes, just interrupt me inshallah. Imam At-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَمَشِيئَتُهُ تَنْفُذْ لَا مَشِيئَةَ لِلْعِبَادِ إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ لَهُمْ فَمَا شَاءَ لَهُمْ كَانَ وَمَا لَمْ يَشَأْ لَمْ يَكُنْ. Or did I take your reading time away? Read, sorry, I'm sorry. Read the next paragraph.
قال المصنف رحمه الله ومشيئته تنفذ لا مشيئة للعباد إلا ما شاء لهم فما شاء لهم كان وما لم يشأ لم يكن يهدي من يشاء ويعصم ويعافي فضلا ويضل من يشاء ويخذل ويبتلي عدلا وكلهم يتقلبون في مشيئته بين فضله وعدله وهو متعال عن الأضداد والأنداد لا راد لقضائه ولا معقب لحكمه ولا غالب لأمره آمنا بذلك كله وأيقنا أن كلا من عنده.
We're not going to have time to finish the whole paragraph, but don't worry, next week inshallah ta'ala we'll catch up inshallah. وَمَشِيئَتُهُ تَنْفُذُ. We've spoken about the levels of Qadr, and we've said that we believe that Allah Azza wa Jal knows everything, and whether that be past, present, future, etc. We said that Allah Azza wa Jal commanded everything to be written. He created the pen and He commanded the pen to write, and the pen said, what shall I write? He said, write everything that will happen until the day of resurrection. The third is al-Mashi'ah. Now what we want to start with is defining this word, because in English we say will, but there are three words that we often might get confused about as it relates to Qadr, and it might lead us to become mixed up about some things. And I take this really seriously, because what I see is most of the people who fall into atheism, when you speak to them, they have some issue in this, something to do with the Mashi'ah of Allah Azza wa Jal. Why did Allah decree this for me? How? You never ask why about Qadr, because you can never appreciate the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in any case, there are three words that people often confuse. The first is al-Mashi'ah, which is, I'm just going to translate in English as will. Will. What Allah wills, like insha Allah. That's what Mashi'ah is. Insha Allah. If Allah wills. The second is al-Mahabba. What Allah Azza wa Jal loves. And the third one is al-Irada. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. I'm just going to use wants. There's not really an official English translation of those words, but I'm just going to use, for Mashi'ah, I'm going to use will. If Allah wills, insha'Allah. And for Irada, I'm going to use wants. These three confused a lot of people. And it confused them so much that they actually fell into misguidance in Qadr and Qada, because they couldn't understand the difference between these three words. The first is al-Mashi'ah. And as Imam At-Tahawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, فَمَا شَاءَ لَهُمْ كَانَ وَمَا لَمْ يَشَأْ لَمْ يَكُنْ. Whatever Allah willed, Mashi'ah, whatever Allah willed for them, happened. And whatever Allah didn't will for them, lam yasha, there was no Mashi'ah, it didn't happen. Mashi'ah has no connection in of itself between what Allah loves and what Allah doesn't love. So don't mix them up. Because this is where someone says, how can Allah will something that He doesn't love? How can Allah will evil to happen? How can Allah Azza wa Jal will for something bad to happen? We say, first of all, Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't will pure evil, which has no purpose or wisdom or reason for it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is higher and more exalted and more majestic than decreeing pure evil for the sake of evil. Rather, whatever evil Allah decrees, it has a purpose and a wisdom that He subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Whether we know some of that or we don't know any of it, it doesn't matter. We say that if you said that Allah only wills what He loves, then you have become like those people who have two gods, a God of light and a God of dark. Everything good that happens, they attribute to the God of light. And everything bad that happens, they attribute it to the God of dark. Some of the Christians do this, and they say there's a war going on between God and the devil. Ta'ala Allah amma yaquluna uluwan kabira. High is Allah above what they say about Him. Allah Azza wa Jal, if He wanted to destroy shaitan and all of his junood, He would only say kun fayakun, be and it is. But Allah Azza wa Jal has willed for them to exist for a purpose and a reason that He subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So it's very important that we don't mix up what Allah loves and what Allah wills. Allah may will something He loves. Somebody comes to the prayer and he prays the prayer in the masjid. Allah loves him to pray and Allah willed for him to pray. And Allah Azza wa Jal may not will something that He loves. For example, Allah Azza wa Jal loves for the whole of creation to believe. وَلَا يَرْضَى لِعِبَادِهِ الْكُفْرِ. Allah is not content and not pleased for His servants to disbelieve. So why are there disbelievers outside? Because there is a difference between what Allah loves and what Allah Azza wa Jal wills. So we understand that Allah loves only what is good. And everything Allah commanded in His Sharia is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. All of the acts of worship, whether they are hidden or apparent with the tongue or with the heart or with the limbs, whether they are something you do in secret or something you do in public, all of those things that Allah commanded you to do, all of them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves them. But will you do all of them? That depends whether Allah wills for you to do it or Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't will for you to do it. The next thing that we want to talk about is al-irada. And this is where most people got confused, what Allah wants. So sometimes Allah uses the word irada and He means mashi'ah. And He uses it in a way which is similar to mashi'ah, what He wills. And sometimes He uses it in a way that is similar to al-mahabba, what He loves. So you will find both, and that's where people became confused, because they started saying Allah wants, but it didn't happen. How could Allah want it? Sometimes when Allah says wants, He uses it in the sense of wills, and sometimes when He says wants, He uses it in the sense of loves. So every time you read wants, yuridullah, yuridullah, Allah wants. Ask yourself, is this what Allah willed? And what Allah willed has to happen, always. Or is it something that Allah loves and it might happen or not? It might happen, it might not happen. Different ayat will have different examples of that. Now where He said here, لا مشيئة للعباد إلا ما شاء لهم. Imam At-Tahawi here is not saying that we have no will. What he's saying is our will is subservient to the will of Allah. Which means that I make a decision. Today, I told Abdurrahman, I said, Abdurrahman, you're going to read until وَأَيْقَنَّا أَنَّ كُلًّا مِنْ عِنْدِهِ. You're going to read to there, and I'm going to explain all the way to there. And I only got halfway through that second paragraph. I willed, and Allah willed. And Allah's will always happens. As for my will, if Allah wills it to be carried out, it will happen. And if I willed something, and how many times in the morning you got up to do something and subhanAllah, it didn't happen. You have a will, but your will is subservient to that of Allah. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. You cannot will anything unless Allah wills it, Lord of the worlds. We'll continue to talk about guidance and misguidance next week. But one last thing just quickly before the adhan, and that is that next week we have to slightly change the time because I have an appointment at 8:30, so I won't be able to make the usual 8:30 time, inshallah ta'ala. I'm suggesting that we just do it after Asr, inshallah. Like perhaps we leave a little time, we might not do it like, the minute after the salah, but maybe perhaps we can say 6:30 or something like that, inshallah ta'ala, just for next week, because I'm frightened that if I don't, I won't be able to finish, inshallah. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Wa salatu wa salam ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.